Jeff so excited and he's all worked up, and he wasn't like that before. I love it when you're like that.
Yeah, I just, certain albums just strike a chord with me, and especially if I've taken a lot of crap over the years that I feel is unjustified. And so I don't know. I know I get a little carried away, a little fired up. Maybe the alcohol has a little bit to do with it as well. Maybe. I'm just saying, could be.
Yeah, but that was great.
Yeah, thanks. That was a fun episode to do, I have to say, And I feel like this is sort of an extension of that a little bit, just because I like these albums, but I'm sure a lot of people are, gonna laugh. Be like, oh, I can't believe.
You're right about you're right about Pet Sounds. I don't think I really said it right when I said, I thought it was slightly overrated. It's not really overrated. I guess it's just, as much as I love the album, I don't love it as much as like what some other people seem to. I understand the artistic merit and everything. It's just, I feel like there are a few weak songs on there is all, but it also has some super awesome songs.
Yeah, well, and I get that. Like, there's albums that I just don't care for, but I appreciate their fantastic albums. Like, I'm not going to deny that they're not, masterpieces. It's just, not my cup of tea kind of thing. So like, that's fine. I just hate the people like, that album sucks. I didn't mean that at all. No, I know you didn't, but that's what, that's where I kind of come off getting so indignant, is because I've had enough people be like, no, that album sucks. And it's like, no, it doesn't, knock it off. You're wrong. But, I get that. And like, you cannot like the Beach Boys, and that's cool too. I totally get it if people don't even like the Beach Boys. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but I just, for me, I just feel very passionate about that album. And I get too, it's like, oh my God, if I have to hear about Pet Sounds again, I'm going to totally like shoot myself in the head. Like, I get it. Pet Sounds have been so overdone. You can't escape Pet Sounds when you're talking about great albums, and everybody's got a copy and everybody like, I understand it's been so fawned over and people have just gotten so like over the top about it. And, there's inevitably people are going to push in the opposite direction and be like, I'm tired of hearing it. I don't want to hear anymore, so anyway. But yeah, so should be a fun episode tonight. Before we get into that, you guys want to talk about the three people that we lost today? We lost, if I'm sure most people know, Ray Liotta. Very unfortunately, who's only 67 years old. He was in the Dominican Republic shooting a movie. Appears he died peacefully in his sleep, but of course, I think everybody knows him from Goodfellas. And just recently, I know the last movie I saw him in was that Saints of Newark, or whatever that movie was.
Yeah, that's the prequel to the
Sopranos. He played two different roles in that movie. And then also Alan White, who was a drummer with Yes, had been touring with Yes recently. He, if you're a Beatle fan, he was the drummer on the Imagine album. I don't know if he was on Plastic Ono Band or not. He might have been, but he was John Lennon's drummer, late 60s, early 70s. And unfortunately, he passed away. And then the third, which I'm sure a small portion of people know or care, Andy Fletcher, who was in Depeche Mode, also passed away. He was only 60 years old. So it appears he'd been sick. I don't know. They didn't really say what he died of, but that was a big surprise to me. So tough day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy.
They always say it happens in threes, right?
Yeah. Well, it sure did. Like within the space of 6 hours, I feel like.
I know every text I was getting from you guys for a while, there's somebody else died, you know, and you're like, holy crap.
I know. It was just one of those days.
Alan White was really a really good drummer. I mean, when you think he replaced Bill Bruford and to come into that and be kind of a different style drummer like that. I mean, more rock and roll as opposed to jazz like Bill was, but just played all that complex music that Yes likes to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he did this job. Was he the drummer on Tales from Topographic Oceans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that in and of itself is impressive that, he had to go out and play that live.
Yeah.
You know, and I know like he was touring with Yes recently, but they augmented him with another drummer because obviously when you're the age he is, it's hard to keep up like you used to. But, it was a shock. I don't know if he was on the most recent Yes album. I suspect he probably was.
He was. He was still playing on it. He's on that. And then, like you said, he was kind of off and on, and they just recently announced that he was not going to be playing drums with them on the tour because of different things that he had going on, health issues.
Right. Well, in drumming, and I mean, I'm not trying to, diminish the other musicians, but I mean, drumming is such a taxing instrument to play. I mean, it's so physical, and you're having to keep that up throughout hour and a half, 2 hour concert has to be really exhausting. And so I don't begrudge them at all for having to have two drummers in that band.
Right.
But
yeah.
No. Well, we got people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Mike's got the Spins is here, Basil's here. So welcome everybody. Anthony's here. Anthony says that his albums are Flock of Seagulls, the self-titled, No Doubt, Rocksteady, Madonna, Ray of Light, and Winger Pull. I think Winger Pull is their best album. I really do. That album is fantastic.
Rocksteady is a great album. I love Rocksteady.
Yeah, I feel like Winger for a while was a punchline to any hair metal joke, especially during the grunge era. And I'm not going to pretend to be a Winger fan. I just haven't heard enough of their music. But it seems like they've definitely had I don't know what you want to call it, but I think a reassessment. I think people are not afraid to come forward and say, I think Winger's great. I think the first album's fantastic. I think their entire catalog is solid. And that's something you'd be afraid to admit, I think, back, in the 90s, because people would laugh at you for whatever reason. Kip Winger was sort of like the poster boy for everything people hated about, hair metal. I don't want to disparage, 80s metal by calling it hair metal, because I know people don't like that term, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, people who disparage that kind of music always, oh, what are you, a Winger fan?
Well, I always say that, Melinda Murphy and Brandon, like you guys were showing hair metal, as they call it. And I loved it because it was like, there was always trepidation to join the VC and make videos, because I knew that music I love is ridiculed. It really is. I didn't pick any hair metal today, but I understand it. I understand why people dislike it. But I also think there's a generation of people that didn't grow up in the 90s that like are my son's age, so 15, 16, 17, 18, that are like, they have this picture that was painted by the media that, these grunge bands were out, and then Nirvana made an album and they were brought out to the courtyard and publicly executed. No, a lot of these bands continue to make albums, continue to tour. Like I saw Bon Jovi, because my girlfriend was obsessed with Bon Jovi, in the height of grunge, and it was packed. So it's like, these bands didn't completely die. The media, not the media, the record companies stopped supporting them and stopped signing bands like that and stopped paying the record stations to play their albums, essentially.
Well, Mike's got a good point. He said Beavis and Butthead did Winger.
Beavis and Butthead. They made and killed careers.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like Josh, we were talking about it right before we started filming here about just how great the 80s were and how much we loved it and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that I love and also really kind of despise about the 90s when it came about. Because I mean, obviously the 90s had fantastic music and all of that stuff, but something happened where if you didn't go dark, you weren't accepted.
Right.
You know? So whether you talk about grunge or if you go like the hip hop side with NWA and all that stuff that started to come out, I always describe that as the smiling album covers, where for the longest time, if you were hair metal, if you were hip hop or rap, it was okay to smile on your cover. And then all of a sudden it became a thing where no, you can't smile. You have to be holding a gun, you have to. And for some reason, when that happened, everyone was like, oh, those smiling idiots there, you can't do the Weezer, you can't do the Poisons, you can't. And it's always my bittersweet thing with the 90s. It's just that darkness that it forced on people. And it's okay to have fun when you rock and roll,
Yeah, well, I feel like the 90s tried to overcorrect for, the entire 80s, where it was that fun generation and party music. And, a lot of people considered it disposable kind of music and, it kind of glorified capitalism and just the whole carefree nature of a lot of that music. And I think the 90s, it was sort of like the reckoning, and people sort of went in the opposite way with that. But I think it wasn't until like the late 90s where you had bands like Hanson and maybe Smash Mouth and kind of stuff like that was coming out on the radio, that you started like, let's lighten up. Okay, we've been through half a decade of this smoky, my childhood, and everything sucks, and all this like all this like
it's funny how it goes in cycles. And everything you're saying, I totally agree with it. And I know I kind of bought into it there for a while. It's like 90s come along, and I was getting a little tired anyway of some of the 80s stuff, the cliches, the way it just kept going further and further. And so all this other stuff came out, and all the grunge, and it's like, this is serious. This is how we need to be. But then after a certain point, it did get to be where, okay, now this is a cliche. The fact that we're always so depressed, and when we perform, we're going to stare down. And, that's why, and this is what I hate, because, and I know these guys don't feel this way, but like, I used to love Pearl Jam. Their first few albums, I was totally into them. And then at some point, I don't know, it's like, I can't stand to listen to Eddie Vedder talk. I would hear him because he's so damn serious all the time. And, I don't, everything in the 80s, they were glorifying sexism and, and he whines. And every time I hear him in an interview, I go, ugh! I go, Jesus, lighten up, dude. You are a rock star, for God's sakes. Act like, I don't know what it was. I don't know. I think part of it was when Kiss reunited with the makeup in 96. And at first, I'll be honest, when they first did that, I'm like, oh man, even though I'm a huge Kiss fan, I'm like, why are they putting the makeup on, man? Just go out and play these songs and everything. But then I went and I saw it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm like, this is so much fun. And all of a sudden I'm like, that's right. We can have fun too. Right. We can rock out, we can be serious, but we can have fun too. And it's like that. Right around that time, man, it's like anytime I hear Eddie Vedder talk, and the way he always sounds like he's ready to fall asleep, when he's doing an interview, I'm just like, why are they talking to this guy? There's got to be somebody else to talk to. The other guys in the band don't seem that bad. At least they admit to things, they're like, oh yeah, I listened to Kiss when I was young. Ace Frehley was a big influence on me, but not Eddie Vedder. No. Always had to be. All my influences were just serious. I like The Who, because they had a message. That would be like the only rock. Everybody else was some alternative band or, you know, some punk band. He always had to talk that way. And after a while, it's just like, shut up. Just let a rock star come take your place, son. You're getting on my nerves.
That's such a great point, Gary, because I feel like Kiss gave everybody permission to have fun again with, you know, hard rock and roll. And then it reminded everybody how much fun it was back when everybody, you know, in the late 70s was going to see Kiss, and, you know, Kiss was over the top and their lyrics were all about having fun and sex, drugs, not drugs, but, you know, rock and roll and, you know, all the great things that, you know, you could celebrate again. Once Kiss put the makeup back on and did that tour that was so successful.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. Can I mention one thing? Because the music video shifted too. So if you think about it, Gary, you make an excellent point, because I remember 95, just like you, Kiss got back together. I saw it 3 times on that tour. I was so excited. But the music videos, even the rap and hip hop videos, it was all like P. Diddy on a boat and the girls in the bikinis and the gangster rap kind of, because I remember the early Ice Cube videos with like him toting guns and things like that. And then the rock videos continued with that. Like I remember Monster Magnet made a video and they're like, they literally said all the hip hop guys are having fun. We want to have fun too.
Yeah.
And so I do think there was a giant shift in the way we consume music. Trent Reznor in a recent interview said that he looks back at the 90s and he felt so much pressure to write angry songs. He's like, you don't know what it's like to sit down and you want to write a happy song, but you're like, the fans are going to ridicule me. The record company's going to ridicule me. The press is going to ridicule me. Even though he's feeling this elation, he can't write about it, you know, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's something about, I don't know, you know, you had like Black Sabbath in the 70s, who obviously had like a lot of doom and gloom kind of music, but they were still rock stars. I mean, you know, you still knew their names and they weren't like just hiding. I don't know. It was just kind of a different attitude. I mean, I still love a lot of that music. You know, don't get me wrong. Pearl Jam just seems to be the band that, for whatever reason, just all of a sudden rubbed me the wrong way. I never really got that from like Alice in Chains. Stone Temple Pilots never seemed to be that way. They seem to be fun. You know, I mean, they, even though some of their sound was along those lines, but Scott Weiland had no problem being a rock star. You know, I mean, maybe too much. Of course, you know, some of the lifestyle, but he had some issues, you know.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where you don't mind having to deal with it sometimes. Like having a friend that's going through a tough time, and it's, you know, you're helping them out and everything else, but eventually they come out of it. But you don't really want to be friends with someone who just dwells in a negative space all the time. It's like, that's just
that's tiring.
And like you were just saying, man, you nailed it, Gary. That's exactly where the music was going. It's just, if you're going to be into grunge and real grunge, not that poppy Creed stuff and all of that crap, you know, you have to be at this negative, harsh, pissed off level all the time. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm a happy freaking dude, man. I need a little for pop in my life. I can't do that.
What do we got in the comment?
Oh, so Happy Hippie says he's sending Gary Pearl Jam's greatest hits, which is fantastic. Beth is here from Miss 80s. We all love you, Beth. Mike's got the spin, says welcome to Beth. Boats and hose, Mike says. I'm all for boats and hose. And Basil says the Who rules, and the Who does rule.
Oh, I
think Gary will admit that too. Eddie Vedder does have good taste in the Who. Just go and say that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into our topic that we had tonight, which is we are going to show 5 uncool albums that we love. And uncool can be because the band is uncool. It could be a cool band, but an uncool album. I think we each are going to have different interpretations of this particular topic. But, we're going to start going around. We'll just do one album, just take a turn. Gary, you'll go first, then Brandon, then Josh, and then I'll go. So Gary, you want to talk first about, how you picked your albums, and then what's your first record that you're going to show?
Yeah. Okay. Now, just exactly like you said, there's kind of different ways to interpret this, and I imagine that we all will. So like the first one is kind of different than my other picks, and it might seem ridiculous, but what I am going for is Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. Now, the reason why I am picking this is because most of the time when you hear Springsteen fans talk, it's always, well, I liked all his stuff before Born in the USA. I can't, they talk about how he had it was commercial and whatever, all these things. They always talk about, well, I like Springsteen, Born to Run, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and The River, that period right there, which so do I. I mean, I love that stuff, but I don't know how anybody can deny the greatness of this album. I think everybody, how many times when you hear him talk about this album, one of the first things they have to talk about is they go, well, what about the Dancing in the Dark video? Bruce Springsteen doing his, crazy white guy dance that he's doing like that up there. And he gets Courtney out of the audience. That they're always talking, he had a synthesizer going through that song. That's not Bruce Springsteen, blah, blah, blah. But then you listen to the rest of the album. And another thing that people, that don't like, and I've taken some crap on my channel, like when I talk about an album like this for some reason, is they say, well, this is when he went political. This is when he started getting all political. And I'm like, well, he's just commenting on things that were going on during this time period. There was a lot of unemployment that was going on. The economy was in the tank. He's talking about, at this time, Vietnam vets who were, still being traumatized, that people weren't talking about as much like they do now. I mean, now, everybody talks about it. He brought a lot of that to light. When you think of it, this was only like 14 years after Vietnam, not even quite that, really, now that I think about it. So, and he's singing about people of his generation on this album. And the lyrics on this, I mean, lyrically, it had to be the best album of that year. That all the topics, I mean, like when I listened to the song My Hometown, that's my hometown, that he's talking about. It's, it's amazing. And I think it's one of those albums that we talk about where it gets really big. And because it's really big, it's automatically uncool to say, I love this album. This is one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen albums. So I guess that makes me uncool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all say you like Pink Floyd The Wall. See what kind of comments you get,
Yeah, that's
exactly. It's the same principle. Yeah.
That's an awesome pick, Gary. And two things that I'll say about that too is when you talked about him getting political, I actually like the way that he was political there, because he wasn't taking a position or pushing an agenda as much as he was just kind of observing things that were going on and just telling you the story. Like, he wasn't in your face and trying to say, this is how you should be or else. So, I mean, I really liked him in that time frame. And when it comes to Dancing in the Dark, people can slam on that song. It's a little poppy or whatever else. But I remember the first time I saw the movie Blinded by the Light, when they had the lyrics that were popping up on the screen while that song was playing. And I was like, those lyrics are just as deep as any song that he's ever written. I mean, they really are very, very good lyrics. And not to mention the way that he delivers the you can't start a fire worrying about your little world falling apart is probably one of my top 10 lines he's ever delivered in any song he's ever written.
Yeah.
And so I'll stand behind that album in a heartbeat. So great pick, man.
Thank you.
And there's not a bad song on that album. There's
not. There really is
not one bad song. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some people weighing in on their Uncool albums. You got Rod, Happy Hippie, talking about Peggy Lee. listening to Black Coffee right now. Mike owns 3 Rick Springfield records.
Yes.
Which would be considered uncool. Miss 80s says that most of her collection would probably be deemed uncool. Gaze and Afternoon had an album by Leif Garrett back in the day.
Oh,
there you go.
And I liked it, he says.
Nobody
Yeah.
less cool than Leif Garrett, probably.
Mike, I've got Rick Springfield albums too.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's got some good songs.
Rick can rock.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can rock.
All right, Brandon, what's your pick?
All right. So I'm just going to punch you guys in the gut and just jump right into it. I mean, a lot of stuff that I picked was just, things that I've just been used to hearing people say over the course of my lifetime. They're the butt end of jokes and everyone's kind of knocked them and that type of thing. So the first one I'm going to go with is the one and only Michael Bolton. And this is Michael Bolton Gold, which is his greatest hits. And I mean, we only have to talk about, the jokes and the cracks that are made about him and everything else. And I'll be the first to admit, a lot of his bigger hits that really put his name, on the map are not the things that I really like as much. I mean, like, how am I supposed to live without you and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, I want to shoot myself in the head every time that song. It's like, it's the worst freaking thing in the world. But once you get past that, I mean, the dude has a voice. He has the ability to kind of mix the soul and the pop of what was going on at the time. And still to this day, as far as like ballads go, and like, I don't know if you call it a power ballads. I mean, it's not like hair metal or anything like that. But the song Said I Love You, But I Lied is one of the greatest rock/pop love songs. Definitely in my top 5. I mean, I love it to death, and he delivers it like a champ. So it's just one of those things that once you just kind of let yourself get past Michael Bolton, you actually realize the dude has some great songs and some great pipes.
Yeah, he can definitely sing. He has a terrific voice. You can't deny that he's got a great voice.
Yeah. And for
I feel like he's almost the Barry Manilow of the 1990s, where he's never going to get any respect because he's taken too much crap over the years. I mean, anybody likes Barry Manilow, like, that's fine. I'm just saying, in terms of like, Michael Bolton, it's hard to get a lot of people to say, yeah, Michael Bolton is great.
Mm-hmm.
He co-wrote the Kiss song Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's definitely got talent, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was in a band with Bob Kulick, right? Blackjack.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Early on, he was definitely more of a rocker before he, kind of made it big with those ballads. But like most things, when it's the, again, in my opinion, the horrible ballads that really get your name out there, you just get this stamp on your back, and he was just never able to erase it. But I freaking love him. I think he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to make these picks too. I like it.
Yeah. So that's my pick.
Awesome. All right. So for my first pick, and guys may not know about this, but I love to have no reason to rapping. Like they should never rap in their life, but they decide to make a rap album. And so I've got 2 artists that did this. One is Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd with the Dragnet soundtrack, where they actually have a rap song, and it's just as awful as you think it would be. And the other one is Rodney Dangerfield with Rappin' Rodney. They're actually rapping on this, guys. I'm not lying. And I just love it. I don't know why I love it. And I'm sure it's very uncool. But I don't know, guys. I love it. I can't get enough of it. So if you want to hear Tom Hanks rap, this probably cost me $4 on Discogs, and it's in the shrink. Go buy this soundtrack. It's a hilarious movie. I'm a fan of this movie. And if you want to hear something even worse, Rodney Dangerfield rapping, then go get this. And it's probably very cheap on Discogs too. So there you go. First one is...
I'm shocked. I'm surprised white people didn't single-handedly kill off rap or ruin it for like everybody, because you had every sitcom, every commercial, somebody would be like, my name's Mike D, and I'm here to say, like the whole.
They're always here to say.
Yeah, that's always how it started. Somebody.
Oh, hey, one of the first hits that had rapping in it was "Rapture" by Blondie.
Absolutely,
yeah. Ronnie's accent is a great album, though, man. He's one of the classic comedians of all time.
Exactly.
He's hilarious.
I'll buy Ronnie Dangerfield. He's fantastic. All right.
Well, people are going to think my next pick's ironic because I just unloaded a shitload of this band's albums when I was my first. But, that's why I can't show a more uncool album. But I'm still talking more about the band than this particular album. But there is no band less cool than this one in the 70s and 80s. I'm talking about Chicago. This is their first album. So when they were called Chicago Transit Authority. And I will grant you, once Peter Cetera sort of took over as chief singer-songwriter of Chicago, starting with like Hot Streets and, If You Leave Me Now, I think was the beginning of that era, where it was the power ballad and Peter Cetera. And from then on, Chicago had this reputation of being, that cheesy power ballad band. But Chicago Transit Authority, or their first album, the first couple of Chicago albums for that matter, where you had Terry Kath, who was one of the greatest guitarists of the late 60s, early 70s. Tragically, he passed away in the late 1970s, but this album is fantastic. I mean, you got Does Anybody Know What Time It Is, Beginnings, so many amazing, and it's not just the hits off of here, but just these. They've got elements of jazz. They've got elements of hard rock. You got elements of like psychedelic rock on here. Questions. 67 and 68 is great. Like I said, Beginnings is fantastic. Does Anybody Know What Time It Is on here? And they've got some, I'm a Man is a great little jam there. But yeah, this album, and their first three albums were all double albums. No other band has ever had the stones to put out three, the first three albums all be double albums. But, Robert Lamb was a fantastic songwriter. He was doing the lion's share of songwriting back in the day. And yeah, they did have horns, but, I think it was more in a jazzy kind of way rather than a cheesy sort of, and nothing against Blood, Sweat, and Tears, because I do happen to like some Blood, Sweat, and Tears. But, Chicago, their early stuff is great. And I hate the fact that, unfortunately, like Genesis, you've got the Peter Gabriel era, and then you've got the Phil Collins era, which, people tend to, like one or the other. And you've got the Terry Kath era, and then you've got the Peter Cetera era, as it were. And people, have just grown to hate Chicago, or Chicago's kind of been a punchline because of all the music they put out with Peter Cetera and their early 80s hits. But Chicago's a great band. The early 70s Chicago, and that album actually came out in 1969. But you know what I mean? Like those early Chicago albums are just phenomenal.
Well, Royce in the house said he saw Chicago sometime around 1971. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that had to have been amazing.
Yeah. Now, do you like though, Jeff? I mean, do you like any of that 80s era Chicago, or?
No, not really. I mean, I really don't. And I like Phil Collins era Genesis. I do not like Peter Cetera era Chicago. I'm just not a huge power ballad guy. I mean, maybe, but I can't stomach it. It's too sugary, sweet. It's just not for me. And so I understand why there's this hate for Chicago. But like, if you haven't checked out their early stuff, you really need to, because it's an entirely different band. Eddie Hanna, nice to see you, Eddie. I haven't seen you around in a while, but he loves the Chicago Transit Authority album. He's got 2 copies of the album on CD, and the other is a remix version from the 2019 50th anniversary edition. I didn't even know there was such a one. I didn't know that. Daddy Blog says late 80s in Tampa, Chicago, and Beach Boys. Now in 2022, they're teaming up again, are they? I just saw Chicago came out with a new single, which almost sounded like we're breaking up, and it had a very nostalgic kind of a quality to it. I just happened to, it popped up on my Spotify, and I'm like, oh.
Brian Wilson in Chicago are playing up at Pine now.
Are they? Okay. Yeah, that could be. Brian Reynolds saw Chicago live a few years back when they played the whole second album. That had to have been very cool. Royce in the house. Chicago was amazing. Saw them live, Las Vegas Convention Center, 71-ish. Harry's Music Room. Any Chicago with Terry Kath is worth buying. Absolutely. Marine, I have Culture Club, Bolton, and Barry Manilow, Luther Vandross,
Right.
Neil Sedaka, Bobby Sherman. Yeah, totally.
I can tell
right.
you that there is one Peter Cetera song I love, Glory of Love from Karate Kid Part 2. It's probably because when I was a kid, I was a huge Karate Kid fan. But yeah, that song might be pure cheese, but I love it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
I like the song "If You Leave Me Now." I can't help it.
Yeah, that's a good
one. That one's okay. But just the rest of it. God, I don't know. I don't even want to think about like the.
You're my inspiration. Probably killed a lot.
You're the inspiration. God. Every time I hear it, I can't reach for the knob fast enough to turn the radio dial.
I am a man who will fight for your honor.
Yeah.
I love 80s Chicago. I mean, what about more upbeat stuff, like maybe Along Comes a Woman? Is it just the ballad 80s stuff, or is it just kind of satire in the 80s period?
Okay, so for Chicago 16, I have to pick one song. I mean, Along Comes a Woman is okay. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't hate Peter Cetera, all the stuff that he did. I mean, I like, some of the stuff that he did in the mid 70s, like Happy Man, I think is a great song. So I it's not that I don't like him, everything he ever did, but just when they started to get into that, incessant power ballad stuff, they really kind of ushered in that era of, kind of like all the soccer, because like my mom loved Peter Cetera era Chicago. She bought all like those shitty Chicago albums, like Chicago 14, 15, 16, 17, like all that stuff, and used to play it around. I think that probably also, made it less appealing to me. And it wasn't until, I actually started hearing some of the, or at least revisiting like Chicago's early stuff. It's like, like Chicago's greatest hits is a phenomenal. I love that, that record. But anyway, enough of this. Isn't a Chicago episode, so stop me. Gary, what you got for us now?
Okay, so the next one, I will admit that at one point in my life, I did make fun of this album. Of course, I'm talking about I was in junior high at the time. So, I had to be all Mr. Rock and Roll, and I was against this, even though it was quite the phenomenon. And I actually did like a lot of those songs, but I would never admit it until I got older. And I think maybe now people don't throw as much shade on this album, but at one time, this album was just the butt of everybody's joke. And that would be the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. This, I don't know how many copies it sold. It was obviously very popular, but for years and years, this was an album that, any guy pretty much is going to say, oh yeah, that's stupid. This sucks. The Bee Gees suck. I hate disco. I hate all these songs on here. even though you might be humming them in your head while you're making fun of it. But when you go back now and, you know, you look at some of the songs on here, you know, I know we talk about a lot of times in the vinyl community how, you know, early Bee Gees is totally different than this, which it is. You know, they are very different. But this still is a great album. There's songs on here where I'm sorry, but you might be playing them at home. You might be playing them by yourself. You're dancing around when they are going on. The Bee Gees, I mean, you know, Barry Gibb is just an amazing songwriter. Just one of, you know, probably one of the better songwriters of the 20th century. And it's displayed here. It's kind of like, oh, okay, you want me to write some songs, write them in a dance beat kind of thing. Okay, we'll do that. And you know, you look at a lot of the songs on here. Of course, you got Staying Alive, which, you know, that was a super ridiculed song, but I don't know how you don't like that song. I don't know how you can't dance to it, but Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love? And then you have other people. It's not just the Bee Gees. If I Can't Have You, that was a great song. You got the instrumental, A Fifth of Beethoven. I always like that. Jive Talking is on here. Boogie Shoes by KC and the Sunshine Band. I want to put on my boogie shoes.
Yes. Yeah.
Night Fever, You Should Be Dancing. Oh man, when that comes on, man, you just want to move when you hear that song. That song's amazing. More Than a Woman is on here. I mean, this is a great album. You know, I think we can admit in 2022, this is a fantastic album. This is just fun. This is just a fun album.
Yeah, well, and how about the Bee Gees? A Tale of Two Bands, you know, and we were talking last week about, you know, like, and I hate to keep bringing Genesis up, but, you know, they had to graduate from progressive rock if they were going to stay relevant. And that's what the Bee Gees had to do. You know, nobody wanted to hear songs like, you know, I Started a Joke in, you know, 1977 or whenever that album came out. You know, they had to adapt, and they did it so successfully. They were able to, you know, I mean, their 60s work is fantastic. Their early 70s stuff is great too. But to just make that transition and to do, you know, get into, you know, almost like, I don't know that they started the disco craze, but they certainly, you know, helped popularize it. And that record, it holds up today. It's great. Those are classic tracks on there. You Should Be Dancing, How Deep Is Your Love is still a great ballad. You know, there's nothing embarrassing about that album. I've got it on CD. I remember when my dad bought it, I was like 7 years old, and we went to Kmart, and, you know, he bought that. I remember him buying that record, and I think it was like, you remember they used to have those records where it was like a comic book, but a little 45 or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Play along with the story. I remember buying, it was like a Batman record like that with a little, you know, comic book thing in it, or the book or whatever. Yeah. I'm getting all nostalgic.
I wish I still had all those. I used to have a bunch of them.
I know. Can you imagine how much they'd be worth?
You're reading along and it's telling the story, then it would go beep and you would turn the page.
Yeah.
In case you couldn't read yet. Yeah.
Learn to read.
You know, that's the awesome thing about albums like that, because even in a very subtle way, it's like, Gary, when you're sitting there reading the titles, like you're lit up, like, you know, you're smiling. That positive thing we were talking about, it's just a fun album. It's hard not to catch on to that every time you hear it.
But when you're when you're a kid and you're listening to Aerosmith and Judas Priest, you're not going to tell your buddy, hey, how about that Bee Gees disco song? They go, oh, that stuff's shit.
All right, so Sam St. John, okay, he just kind of exposed the elephant in the room that I think we all have been thinking about, but maybe not saying. Sam St. John says, Gary, looking very boyish with the clean chin.
Yes. It's summertime. I got rid of the beard, and my wife was kind of like saying that she missed my face. And, you know, she said I look really old with the beard, which I don't have any problem with. I don't have any problem looking old. I am old, but I thought I'd just shave it for a while. It'll be back when the weather's cold again.
Yeah. All right, I'm trying to back up through the comments because I feel like I let it get away from us. Mike says, early Bee Gees is awesome. Also,
yeah,
Gaze, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not trying to be funny if I'm mispronouncing it, but Gaze in Afternoon says Donna Summer had such great tunes too. Absolutely,
very much.
Yeah,
Miss
the
80s
Bad Girls
that
album.
soundtrack. The movie is a rough watch nowadays. I agree. I'd never seen that movie before, and then I saw it was on Netflix, and I started watching it. I'm like, this has not dated well at all. Why did people like this movie? I mean, the music's great, but the movie itself, I just didn't understand the appeal of it.
Wait, what was the movie you didn't like?
Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, yeah, the movie's mediocre.
Yeah, it's not aged as well as the music has. Mike says disco brought us all together on the dance floor. It was awesome. Royce in the house. I can totally relate. I was late to the game with many I came to respect later for their talent. Michael Jackson and Prince are two good examples. Yes. Woodland Goblin, any 5 crap rap albums. There's your show, guys. Gaze in Afternoon, Maxine Nightingale and the Emotions were great. Ron says only disco song I like is Funky Town. Daddy Blog, Wilson Pickett, Funky Broadway, Mustang Sally. Gazin wants to know, do you have the Grease soundtrack, Gary?
Yes.
Okay. Ron says you look good, bro. I assume he means you, Gary, but he might mean me.
Well, who is this? Sam says that he thinks that Josh and Brandon should shave, and that Jeff, you should grow a beard.
Oh, we'll just mix it up next week. Okay, that's our assignment. You guys come in.
How about if I shave?
Yeah.
I won't wear glasses or a hat.
There you go.
Like a completely different person.
Yeah, Trevor's flat, round, and spun says, I love the Bee Gees. Their vocal harmonies are untouchable. Well, as a Beach Boys fan, I might say they're a little bit touchable, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Totally. Rod says, I just thought Gary must have had court today or something. Yeah, me too. I was wondering. Thank God it's Friday is one of getting some love here in the comment section.
It's Friday.
It's raining men. Yeah. All right, Brandon, what do you got?
All right, so the next pick here. Again, I'll just dive right in. Won't even do a prelude here. Billy Ocean.
Love Billy Ocean.
Yes, love him to death. And obviously, especially with this album here, Suddenly was kind of a hit, but the 2 songs that everyone knows off of this, they're probably tired of hearing to no end, is of course Caribbean Queen and Loverboy. Those were his 2 big, gigantic hits. But really what makes this album are the B tracks that really didn't get any traction whatsoever. So when you start diving into stuff like Mystery Lady and Syncopation and stuff like that, those are songs that I can listen to over and over. And it's just the smoothness of Billy's delivery with the way that, just throughout all the stuff that he did, whether it was his stuff from Love Zone to here, it was just the way that it was guided and controlled by that deep bass groove, that was always his thing. And you can tell because the only dance that Billy had was the 2-step where he just stepped to the bass groove the entire time. He did nothing else. But it's like, you didn't need anything else. Like that freaking groove is killing. Just stay right there. But again, I think he just had a great voice, especially for the type of songs that he was delivering. And to me, this album is so overlooked because people just focused on the 2 hits that were off of there. But if for some reason you've never heard Syncopation or Mystery Lady, you have to check those 2 songs out. But this entire album is fantastic. And I've never had anybody in my life tell me that Billy Ocean was cool. So
yeah.
If we Photoshop Billy Ocean with a bald head, he would look a lot like you, Brandon. As you're holding that record up, I'm like, yeah, he's got the facial hair, am I wrong? Am I wrong, guys?
I don't know. I gotta see a bit of hair on Brandon's head.
They got a black
I love that album.
People are calling
now
me,
not
people
so
are
much.
like whenever I go out in public, people always are mistaking me for Vin Diesel. Like, it's Vin Diesel. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. I've even thought about like doing a birthday party thing, like, oh, I'll be Vin Diesel for your birthday. Anyway,
later on he had those horrible dreads, and I just didn't like. I didn't think that was a good look on him, like the very gray dreads, and I was just kind of like,
kind of like Bobby McFerrin. Bobby McFerrin, threw out the dreads and all that. It's like,
But this is
that's a good
one of my absolute favorite albums to listen to, without question. Matter of fact, upstairs, I have another copy upstairs right now that's sitting on that turntable. I was listening to it 2 days ago. Never get tired.
I love that album, and it's so cheap. Anyone in the VC, you can find that record generally pretty inexpensive, and it's like you said, every song is great on it. It's just a classic '80s album. I love the production on that album. I love the songs. Not a bad thing to say about that album.
Yeah,
we're getting some love for The Going Gets Tough. The Tough Get Going. That song, Lover Boy.
Yeah,
remember that one?
One thing I did not know about this album, actually until recently, and I'm sure, like Josh, you probably did, but like the song Caribbean Queen, I didn't realize that there were so many different single versions of that were made. That there was one that was the exact same song, but called African Queen and European Queen, and like all these singles that were released in different countries. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Vanilla Bean Queen, yeah.
Mike's Got the Spin says that Billy Ocean was born with 3 lungs. He said, true story. I don't know. He also said that his wife got that album autographed.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's cool. I would love
autographed by Billy Ocean or autographed by somebody else?
Yes. By some guy in the street. By Brandon.
My son autographed one of my albums. It doesn't make it. All right, great pick, Brandon. JC, what you got?
So my next album is actually a Beach Boys album that I own, Jeff. But let me give a little premise of this and why it's uncool. I think it was really cool when I bought it. But then a little thing, Eric B. and Rakim came out and shattered the rap game. And all of a sudden, the old school rappers no longer were cool anymore. And it was weird in hip hop and rap because there was like the new school, the old school, besides maybe Run DMC, they held on for a little bit longer, really was forgotten about until maybe recently, over the last 20 years, people have really gone back and appreciated old school rap. And it's going to be the Fat Boys with the Beach Boys Wipeout. I was obsessed with the Fat Boys, with Run DMC. So when in the 80s, I was into, I love it. I was into rap just as much as I was.
Yeah, the Fat Boys, right? Like within you're like Aaron that way. Brandon, how did you have that right there?
Because literally that was my next pick, and he ran with the Fat Boys. That is awesome.
God, that's funny.
We'll move that one along.
I love it.
Josh is covering it.
My dad took me to go see Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. He did not take me to go see the Fat Boys movie.
Disorderlies. Remember Disorderlies?
I wanted to, and my father said, enough that I went through Electric Boogaloo with you. Like, can't we rent it? But I loved it, man. I loved rap. I loved the Fat Boys. And, I understood it. Just like when grunge came out, it really killed the hair metal. When the new school rappers came out, and it seemed like there was always a new wave of rappers, you just didn't hear anything from the old school rappers. So, yeah, I wanted to give some Fat Boys some love. I think they're underrated. And I know it's not cool and the Beach Boys are on it, Jeff. That's why I chose this one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing.
Hey,
yeah,
Josh, hold that.
Well, they were like the Three Stooges of the 80s, right?
Pretty much.
The rap Three Stooges, kind of.
What are all three of them doing on the cover? Smiling.
Yeah, they're all smiling.
Just like we were talking about before. Smiling.
Like Like, take that, Aerosmith, Run DMC.
We got the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, my pick, well, maybe we should go through some of the comments first. Love the Disorderlies movie. Yes. Didn't one of those guys die? I don't know. Did they?
Yeah,
no, I'd have to Google it.
But Buff did, the human beatbox, the one on the right.
Oh, okay.
He passed away.
Yeah, that's what George just said. Beatbox died.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The late Billy Hinch of Dino Desi and Billy was a backup Beach Boys member, and he would sing Wipeout live in concert. I got into rap, Royce. I got into rap also. Have all the 2-pack, Fitty, Dre, with another video still on iTunes. Yeah, all right. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I can't imagine getting any comments about this band because they're so uncool. They're so uncool, like nobody probably remembers or knows who they are. But you know, I've always felt kind of sheepish liking this band, but they had a hit in the 80s, and I loved that hit so much. And we're talking, you know, the 15-year-old me in 1985. I loved the song so much. I went out and bought the cassette, and, you know, well, I'm not going to like try and make this like, oh, I'm going to keep you in suspense, whatever. I'm talking about Level 42 and their 1985 album, World Machine. And, you know, the hit was Something About You, which is kind of a synth pop, you know, nothing unusual about that on the radio. But, you know, the album reminds me of Sade. It reminds me of Sting's first solo album. It reminds me, you know, it's just got kind of a jazzy, almost like a sort of a jazz fusion with synth pop flavor to it. And Mark King, who was the lead vocalist, he's a fantastic bass guitarist. If you like Weather Report and you like it a little more poppy, you know, I think a little more accessible maybe, Level 42 is definitely the band for you. And this was like their 5th or 6th studio album, and they'd been around for a while, since like the early 80s. And when they came on the scene, they were very much like a Weather Report, except with like vocals. You know, and their sound kind of evolved over time. They got a little bit more poppy, but I love Level 42. You can call them Sophistopop, or, you know, I don't know. I think the best I can categorize them would be like synth pop wedded to jazz fusion, because there are some jazzy moments on here. If you like Donald Fagen, for instance, you know, some of this reminds me of Donald Fagen's solo work from Steely Dan. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I never see anybody show Level 42 in the BC. I never see anybody talk about them. I don't know what people think about them, but I love that record. I listened to it today. And it's like an elevated kind of synth pop, but it's very jazzy. Mark King, you know, with a fretless bass, he's a fantastic bass guitarist. So
I've never listened to it, Jeff, but I will. I'll listen to it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah, I've never.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, the UK version. This is the American version, the US version. Like record companies usually do. You know, they took the UK album and were like, that song sucks. They took some songs from their earlier albums and put them on here and rearranged the track order. But the US version, I think, is the one to get. I prefer it over the UK version, because I think the UK songs that they substituted for on here are not that great. But yeah, the US, the North American version of this is phenomenal. But yeah, definitely check it out. You might be surprised. Yeah, so Mike's got the spin, says, I think I only know one song by Level 42, Something About You. Check it out. You got Spotify, you got another streaming service. You might dig it.
Check it out.
Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe you're like, that's what I expected, Jeff. Your lame ass tip. Anyway, but like, you know, JC, come on, JC, hype. The hype sticker on here, like you gotta love at least that,
I love it.
Right?
And I love that it's color coordinated. To me, that does it every time.
Yeah,
my heart starts beating fast.
It's anyway.
Anywho,
I stand by it. That's a fantastic album. Brandon, check it out. Because if Brandon likes it,
I have heard that album before. But it's been I have heard that album before, but it's been a long time. I need to go back and revisit it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's really, I mean, you know, the radio hits, you know, or synth pop, but the rest of it, like I say, it's very jazzy. It's very, you know, kind of like I say, it reminds me of Weather Report or, you know, Spyro Gyro or something like that, you know.
Miss 80 says that, did you know they did the soundtrack to Meatballs 3, which I don't know if it had a release.
I didn't know there was a Meatballs 3.
Was
that the one with the skiing? Well,
I don't know. I lost
What
track.
is Meatballs 3?
Do a video for us on Meatballs 3.
Maybe Beth will say it here in a second if that's the one where they had the skiing competition.
Yeah. All right. Well, Gary.
Okay.
What's your uncool pick that's still cooler than anything on the show?
It's no surprise to you guys, but you know, a lot of this has to do with nostalgia. But what 9-year-old boy is not going to be intrigued by this? Olivia Newton-John. I love her voice. She's got that very soft, very feminine voice. You know, if you love me, let me know. If you don't, then let me go. Please, mister, please. I honestly love you. I can still listen to that song and just hear all the heartache in that song. And, you know, of course, later on, this was like from 74. This is 77. So she's starting to, you know, kind of get a little more sexy in her look here. But she I always liked her image. I liked her voice. You know, I can remember being a kid, hearing her songs on AM radio. You know, of course, then she was in Greece, and that catapulted her even more so there for a while, went into the whole let's get physical period and held on for a while, then kind of started to, you know, peter out as far as her popularity goes. But I've never been ashamed to say that I like Olivia Newton-John. I just saw her in concert, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. Had a great time. It's the first time I ever got to see her. My wife and I went. I think my wife cried when we were there, just because it's just one of those, you know, the older you get sometimes, and you see some of these acts from when you were, that you feel like you've known them your entire life. And there's just so many memories. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It becomes very emotional. And she also has one of my favorite Bob Dylan covers with If Not For You. She does. That was a hit for her. And I love it. She's got those beautiful eyes. So Olivia Newton-John.
She looked kind of bitchy on that album cover. I'm sorry, Gary, that one that you showed. She looked kind of bitchy, kind of like.
That's what Gary likes.
Yeah.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but this one or this one?
No, the first one you showed. She looks hot.
Oh, yeah.
First one, she looks a little bitchy.
Yeah, like, now see on the back, just the opposite.
Thank
she's
you
not smiling
for leaving the car on empty after you just drove it all day. Kind of got like that vibe to it, you know.
I can honestly say that's how most women stare at me, like they're pissed off about something.
Did you pick up bread on the way home like I asked you to? You never listen to me. Did you tell your mother she could come on vacation with us? I mean, that's like the whole vibe I get from that album. Anyway.
So Jeff, get ready for
this.
Meatballs 3, it stars Patrick Dempsey and the porn star that died and needs to get to heaven. And to do so, she has to get him laid. That sounds like an 80s movie. We're all gonna go rent Meatballs 3. But she also said she loves the song "Twist of Fate" by Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, that's a later. That's
great.
Maureen says
lots of love.
Did not like Physical. I can understand why some people might not like that. Please don't play B-17. Nothing wrong with Olivia. So yeah, a lot of love for Olivia.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I got Elton John's Greatest Hits Volume 2 for my birthday one year, and I opened it up, and the record that was in it was Olivia Newton-John, not Elton John.
Oh man.
I was like 7 or 8 years old. It's like, what is this? This isn't the Bitch's Back, or where the hell is Someone Saved My Life Tonight? Anyway, yeah, that's my first. But she was on, talk about like Grease soundtrack. Yeah, she was on the Grease soundtrack. Hopelessly Devoted to You is my favorite Olivia Newton-John song, by the way.
There you go.
It's a good one.
You know, the last album I purchased, which was 2 days ago, was Olivia Newton-John's Greatest Hits.
Hey,
there you go.
All right.
Oh, man.
Validated.
That's 2 days ago. Love it. Sitting right there.
All right, Brandon.
All right. So again, I'm going to jump into this one, and I know Beth is here, so she's totally going to have my back on this. I recently discovered that Northern Revolution, he showed this in a video, which actually had my jaw drop. He became one of my favorite BC members instantly. But it is the Grease 2 soundtrack.
Wow.
And this is, again, arguably one of my most favorite albums in my entire collection. I mean, it's not even cool to say you like the movie Grease 2. Let's not even start talking about the soundtrack.
I saw that on cable, because we just got on cable. I probably watched that movie 20 times.
I'm telling you, man, it is not cool to go around telling people that Grease 2 is better than Grease. You will catch hell all day long for that. And both my younger brothers, they're twins. The three of us, we have caught that hell my entire life. Matter of fact, one of my younger brothers, he's an actor. He's been out in Hollywood for like 14 years or something like that, and been getting decent work here and there. And there was one show where he was working with Bradley McKenzie, I think is his name, the guy who played Goose in Grease 2.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there talking to him about it and was like, "Oh man, you just don't even know how much my brothers and we just love that movie. It's the greatest thing in the world." And even Bradley was like, "I didn't know anyone liked that piece of crap." Like, even he thought it was a shock because he knew it was a total and complete flop. So yeah, it didn't play well off of trying to build, the status of Grease, but every single song on this album just brings the biggest smile to my face, and I don't care where I am. If usually it's in my car because nobody else is playing it. But I mean, I will jam out and sing every single stupid line to every single song, and it takes me back to the movie, takes me back to my childhood, takes me to all kind of happy places. Every single song on this thing is phenomenal. And
it takes you to Michelle Pfeiffer. That's where it takes you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the audacity to do a sequel to Grease. I mean, are you serious? I mean, the whole project smacked of like a huge money grab, like Jaws 2 or whatever. But like, yeah, I saw that movie before I ever saw Grease because it was on cable and it was on rotation on Showtime and Cinemax and the movie channel, all that stuff back in the 80s. But yeah, I love that movie.
The song "Prowlin" on there, just nothing makes me happier than to perform. That song comes on and I'm doing all the dances from the movie. I'm singing every single part. It just makes me happy as hell. I just can't even deny it. That fantastic album and movie stomps Grease, in my opinion, stomps it.
I like the fact of, here we are with somebody who has the record collection that Brandon has. And he said, I'm singing every line to Grease 2 in my car, flaring it up. I think that's awesome. I just think that's what's great is knowing, because, we all have all this serious stuff that we talk about all the time, but, you like what you like. And I think that's fantastic. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, yes, Slayer can wait, all of that stuff. There's nothing that makes me happier than listening to that album right there. I love it. Like I said, I know Miss 80s Beth here. She's just as big a fan.
That's like her favorite movie or something.
What's that?
Isn't Grease 2 like her favorite movie? I feel like she's talked about. I thought she said something about it one time. She really.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I love the hype on that album. The hype sticker is color coordinated purple with the outer rim. I noticed that right away. Yeah. Gets me every time. You guys don't know. I'm like a single man that walks into a bar when I see a hype sticker. I'm like, I probably would have bought it just for the hype. All right. So my next one, they're a band that's ridiculed. I think they're extremely talented. And the guitarist is Portuguese, much like myself. So that's, very proud, my Portuguese heritage. And it's probably because their biggest song was such a monster hit and it was a ballad. But I'm going to go with Extreme. I really do love their first 3 albums. I just picked this one. I know that the singer Gary Cherone gets a lot of slack because he joined Van Halen and people really blame him. But that was a Van Halen solo album. Eddie Van Halen solo album. If you go and look at the live clips, he actually did a pretty good rendition of a lot of the David Lee Roth songs. But I think this album is great. But like the song "Get the Funk Out," it's got it's rock, it's heavy. It had 2 big hits that were kind of ballady, More Than Words and Wholehearted. But the rest of the album really rocks. And Nuno Betancourt is one of the most underrated guitarists. And when I was a kid, or a teenager, I should say, I listened to Slayer, I listened to Metallica, Anthrax. Man, people would bust on this band so much, but I would be like, I don't know, man, I like that album. I would defend it, and I still defend it to this day. I know Aaron's not a big fan of this album, but he doesn't hate on it, because he's my buddy probably. But there you go, Extreme.
Well, if not for that album, very few people would know who Extreme was. I mean, that put them on the map with More Than Words and Wholehearted.
Yeah. You should watch the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. Extreme kills it. They go out there and they do like a Queen melody, and it's so good. And even Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, he went to Harvard, and Extreme was a local band. They played in Boston, and he said he'd go to a club and see Nunu shred with like 15 people in the club, and it's like, he knew, he's like, this guy's going to be something. And and now Nuno Betancourt plays for Rihanna. He's like a session musician, and Extreme still tours, so you can still see them. But it might not be the coolest pick, but I definitely love the band.
He has an amazing voice too. Like I'm one of those people that I didn't hate Van Halen 3. Like, I thought Without You was a great, powerful rock song, and his voice was killer in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Gary Cherone's got a great voice.
All right. Well, my next pick is not anywhere near as cool as Extreme 2 is. I feel like it's almost like that interview question where, well, what are your weaknesses? Well, I'm not going to show you what a weakness is, but I'm going to say positive, But this is like, okay, this was a smash album when it came out. And the band just decided to break up after it, which never, like, okay, you put out like one of the biggest albums of 88, and then you just break up. Like, what? You're not going to capitalize on like the success of this album? Are you crazy? But talking about Fine Young Cannibals, The Raw, and The Cook, this is a great album. You know, She Drives Me Crazy, yeah, got overplayed on the radio. Good Thing got overplayed on the radio. I'm Not the Man I like, on and on. But start to finish, this is just a solid album. You know, in some ways it's sophisti-pop. It's just not, you know, it's not, I don't know, like their first album, their self-titled debut, was sort of an underground, kind of a new wave sort of album. But this was definitely more mainstream, more crossover. And they're a UK group, but yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I bought it when it came out. I had it on cassette. I had it on CD. Now I've got it on vinyl. It's just a great, great album. It's a cool album. There's a bunch of singles off here. They do a cover of Ever Fallen in Love by the Buzzcocks, which they make their own. It's just a great, great pop. Call it synth pop, call it, I don't know, sophisti-pop, whatever you want to call it. But I love this album. You know, am I the only one who still like is not ashamed to say this album kicks ass?
Well, George just wrote that both Fine Young Cannibal albums rule. So
they're great. I can't understand. Like, why'd you break up? You guys like put out the smash album and then we're done. Like, what? Like, we don't like money. We don't like money. I don't like money. Let's just break up. What?
Yeah, I have that album too. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Classic.
Okay. My next pick is, I think I'm kind of picking it because of the time period when it came out and the reception of it at that time. And that is Music from the Elder by Kiss. This album was totally dismissed and crapped on by people because, you know, I remember the crazy thing is when it came out. So this would have been the first album that came out after Unmasked. It was the first album that featured Eric Carr on it. And there was like no hype on this thing at first. I mean, I just, me and my friends, you know, we used to go to the mall every week and we always went into the record store or whatever. And we looked and we saw this, you know, and we saw it said Kiss. And we're like, Music from the Elder. We're like, what is this, a soundtrack? That's what we thought. You know, we thought it was a soundtrack to some movie or something. And of course, you know, you get it home and you're playing it and you're like, wow, this is really different for Kiss. It was like a big change. But at the same time, I mean, Kiss had also already made a big change when they did Unmasked. Because, you know, I remember as a kid, I was a young teenager at that time. And when it came out, I mean, it took me a while to get into Unmasked at first. And so this one actually, I remember hearing it thinking it actually rocked more than what Unmasked did, even though it has some very theatrical moments in this. But it also has some pretty rocking songs. And I thought Paul sounded really good on a lot of it. Gene had really cool songs. Ace has a great song on here. Eric Carr sounded fantastic on the drums. It was the first time we got to hear him. And I fell in love with this album when it came out. But like nobody else knew about it. And you know, the critics who talked about it, they're like, you know, what the hell is Kiss doing? It's like, this is stupid. There was nobody else besides like just a couple of my close friends. Because I was like a sophomore, I think, when this came out, and nobody knew it. I mean, nobody gave a crap about Kiss at this time period. You know, they talk about like when Creatures of the Night came out, and, you know, of course, now everybody totally loves that album, but that was kind of the same way. I mean, you know, like I said, that was the first time I got to see him. The place I saw him wasn't even full or anything. I mean, Kiss was dead in the water when this thing came out. And what I hate also is even the members of Kiss put this album down. And, because so many people have criticized them for making this. They go, well, it's some kind of weird concept album that doesn't even make sense and blah, blah, blah. So it's like the members of KISS themselves will say, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. It's not us. And it's like, no, it is you. It is you. You are the band on here. You just decided for one album, you know what, we're going to do something different. We're going to try broaden our horizons a little bit beyond what we have been doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I love about this album. It's probably one that I play more than like a lot of the other KISS albums because it is so different. It is a change of pace to hear them play like this and to hear them say, you know what, I'm going to try to write these kind of different style songs. And I think it worked. I would probably pick this album over a lot of the albums that people put very high up there with KISS, but that's my pick for one that people criticize and think is uncool.
Well, they took a risk with it. I mean, definitely, it did not pay off at the time. It bombed, and it kind of further, people who were already like, well, I'm jumping off the KISS train. It was like one more reason for them to bail on that band. But I think it holds up well now. I think it was bold for them to do that at the time. It's the first KISS album that doesn't actually have them on the cover. I think they had seen a success that Pink Floyd had with The Wall and was like, well, we can do that. So they brought Bob Ezrin in and, they tried to, replicate that, which, it didn't work. But I think it's enjoyable because it is so different than anything KISS put out. And they did like, okay, Creatures of the Night. Yeah, like that's going to, satisfy the people that jumped off, the bandwagon with the Elder. But I like that album. And I don't know how many other KISS fans, I'm sure we're in the minority, Gary, but I think there's a lot to really enjoy about that album.
Melinda Murphy wrote in the comments, The Elder is awesome. So yes, Melinda, absolutely. And I love The Elder. Aaron loves The Elder. I don't know how about you, Brandon, if you love it or not, but and Mike loves it. Mike's got the spin, so we're not alone. Gary.
I definitely love it. I mean, I think that The Oath is probably the one song I listen to as much as any KISS song. I mean,
that's a great one. I'm not comparing this. Whoops, I got it back. What am I doing? I'm not comparing this to The Wall by Pink Floyd. I'm not saying that, but I think for KISS, I just think it was a nice different album, and I think that's what makes it really cool. That's what I really like it.
Very cool.
All right.
So am I
Brandon.
You're going, Brandon.
All right. Okay, so here's another common one. And I think with this album, this is one that I find people find it cool to say that they really like a particular, or actually maybe one or two particular songs on it. But as a whole, people don't lay a big claim to the album. And that is going to be Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual, right? So usually you see that Cyndi, that cover or whatever, and the first thing people think about is Time After Time, which of course it's hard to deny that is a fantastic song, whether you don't like the popish 80s stuff or not. And then of course, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Those are just two gigantic hits off of the album that will draw people in to some degree. But beyond that, people don't tend to give Cyndi a lot of credit for all the other stuff that's on this album, or even just frankly her singing ability. Just some of the notes that she can hit and hold and what she does, it just kind of gets lost in, she's the weird girl jumping around in the funny clothes, making all the colorful 80s videos, and she was just part of the cheese. But I mean, she does have a voice and really can do things that a lot of people can't do vocally. But I mean, every single song on this album, from like the entire first side with Money Changes Everything, of course you have Girls Just Want to Have Fun, When You Were Mine, which I think actually Prince wrote that song.
Right.
And she did a fantastic cover of that. Time After Time, of course. And that to me, Time After Time I think is certainly one of the greatest pop songs that ever been written. And one of the things that I think makes it so great is that almost anyone that covers that song, it always sounds fantastic. Like it's almost impossible to cover that song and screw it up, which to me is kind of a testament of how great a song it is. Of course, She Bop that put her on the Filthy 15 and all of that, All Through the Night, Witness. I mean, just every track on here is just really, really fantastic. And when you see her doing things, like again on the song Money Changes Everything, at the very end of that song, when you hear just kind of how she's holding notes and kind of what she's doing vocally, again, most people can't do it, and she does not get a lot of credit for her ability to sing the way that she can. But this is an album too. It's a little funny story really quick. I think this might have cost me a second date one time, because I went on a first date with someone and there was a record store nearby, and we walked in and we're just kind of browsing around or whatever. And she was like, you know a lot about music. I saw in your pictures you had a bunch of vinyl. I was like, yeah, I know a few things here and there. And she goes, so if I picked up an album, do you think you could like name at least 3 songs off of it? I was like, I don't know. Let's try it and see. And so she randomly went and got this one, thinking that she was like tricking me or whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, I named every single song in order on both sides. She was like, wait a minute, this isn't the dude I thought he was.
Yeah.
So we never got around to the second date, but I have a feeling that had something to do with it.
Is that a MoFi pressing?
Yeah, I have a MoFi pressing of it, a Japanese pressing. Billy Crayoni here in the VC got her to autograph a copy for me. Heck, I even got a.
That's awesome.
How cool is that?
Oh wow!
Cyndi,
I love this album.
Cyndi and I spend many a night together. I love that album. Absolutely love it. And it'll never go down on my list.
I agree. She is an underrated singer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like, you know, she can sing the ballads, she can sing the quirky songs, she can bring out that Dale Bozzio, you know, high pitched thing there to go along with her vocals. That's a good point. I kind of feel like as time went on, she became a little more respected, a little more revered. People kind of realized, yeah, you know, she's not just some kind of one-hit wonder or a joke. She's a real artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, she's so unusual. It's a thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
I saw her about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years. I think about 4 years ago. She opened for Rod Stewart, and sounded just as fantastic as she did back in 1983. I mean, she still has a voice and was awesome.
I'd rather see Cyndi Lauper than Rod Stewart.
What's that?
I'd rather see Cyndi Lauper than Rod Stewart, but that's just me.
How was Rod in concert?
Rod was great. He still sounded really good. You could definitely tell he wasn't as mobile. You know, that they were trying to do setups and stuff where he was on stools more often and things like that. But I mean, you know, just, you know, hearing stuff like some guys have all the luck and all the time. I mean, it was just like there's, you know, how much I love 80s Rod. I mean, it was an awesome concert. You could definitely tell that he's been around a while for sure. His voice was good, just wasn't as physical.
You know, ever since you showed that one Rod Stewart album, the one where he's down like his head, I can't think of the name of it now, but
Out of Order.
Yes, I have not seen that. I haven't seen it since you showed that, and I swear to God, I used to see it all the time, and now I'll go kind of looking through it, and I go, well, no, of course I don't see it now, but I'll get it, and I'll get it probably for $5.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whenever I finally find one.
Yeah.
So I am so glad that Miss 80s is here, because she can defend mine, much like she defended Brandon's Grease too. This is literally one of my favorite albums. There's no joking here. I would rank it in my top 20 favorite albums that I own, if not top 10. It is a rare album. I love every single song. And it's going to be Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. I absolutely positively love this album. It's songs by Paul Williams. Essentially, the story behind this is Jim Henson wanted to make the Muppet movie, and they didn't think people would go see a full movie with Muppets. So they gave him the money to do something else. And if it worked, he'd get the money for the Muppet movie. And he made Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which was an old book about a boy that his father has passed, and they live pretty poor, and they live on the river. And he's always wanted to buy his mother a Christmas gift, and she's always wanted to buy him a Christmas gift, but they never had the money. They live penny to penny. And there's a singing competition, and unbeknownst to the mother, the boy hawks, he puts a hole in the wash tub, which is how the mother makes the money, so he can start a jug band. And the mother hawks the tools that the little boy uses to buy an outfit, because she has no clothes to wear to this singing competition. And I won't ruin the movie for you, but they go, and unbeknownst to each other, they're both competing to win so they can buy each other a Christmas gift. And I know it's a kid's movie, but the songs are fantastic. If you like Rainbow Connection, that type of music, that's exactly what this is. That's the Paul Williams type of songs that are on here. A lot of them are funny. But yeah, I love it. And it's one of my favorite albums. If the house was on fire, Jeff asked me that at the house. He's like, well, if the house was on fire, which album would you grab? Which it wasn't this, but this would be in contention. And it is very rare. If you ever see it, guys, buy it, because it's like $100 record easy. So yeah, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
How long have you had that album?
It was a Black Friday, maybe sometime in the last 10 years.
Wow.
So since they started doing Black Friday, yeah, Christmas release, and I was there at like 4 a.m. for this album. Like, yeah. So
it's
like
kind
I
of
was
got a
like,
cult following.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, Jim Henson, I think, is way underrated. Like, I mean, he changed. I mean, if you're a product of the 70s and the 80s with Sesame Street, the Muppets, and Fraggle Rock, things like that. Yeah, I mean, so that all that stuff, just like Grease 2, brings you back to watching the movie. When I hear this, I really think about being a kid and watching this with my brothers and sisters. And I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite albums. And it's probably
cool.
very cool.
That's cool. That's very cool, actually.
All right. Well, I'm glad. And I'm sure Miss 80 hopefully liked it.
Josh, what are the comments coming in?
She said she hasn't seen Emmett Otter in a long time. Well, Miss 80s, please go see it. If you live close by, I'd invite you over. You can watch it with me and my girl. Paul Williams is underrated.
She mentions Phantom of the Paradise. I remember seeing that movie long time ago.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my pick is an artist that I have always championed on my channel, that I've always taken every opportunity to talk about. And, Tears for Fears came out with a new album this year. And I think anybody who's heard it was blown away by it. And then it just sort of reminded me, like, all the reasons why I love Tears for Fears, why they were such a great band in the 1980s. But the album I'm going to show is not by Tears for Fears, but it's by an artist. If you like Tears for Fears, well, there's a method to my madness here. But if you like early Tears for Fears, and if you like that progression that they had from the Hurting to Songs from the Big Chair to Sowing the Seeds of Love, that whole progression, this artist is really not all that different. This artist started off as a synth pop artist. This artist actually played keyboards on Foreigner's 4 album, on the song Urgent, and other songs on that album. And I'm talking about Thomas Dolby, and this is his 3rd album, Aliens Ate My Buick. But there's the same progression. His first album, which I absolutely love, it's one of my favorite albums of the 80s, The Golden Age of Wireless. And then there was The Flat Earth, which was a progression even more like away from synth pop, more into kind of like that cerebral sort of new wave alternative. And then this is even further in that direction. It's almost like his songs from the Big Chair. You've got Budapest by Blimp, which is the last track on this album. It's such a cinematic, atmospheric song. Absolutely love it. The Key to My Ferrari, Airhead. This is not my favorite Thomas Dolby album. My favorite would be The Golden Age of Wireless. But if you love synth pop, if you love bands like Tears for Fears, if you like Elvis Costello, if you like Joe Jackson, if you like, artists of that ilk, Thomas Dolby is really an artist that you need to explore. And this is his third album of the 1980s, like I said before. Was not by any means prolific. I think in his entire catalog, he's probably got like 5 studio albums, but it's not, in the songs, there's some substance behind it. It's not just, cheesy, vacuous kind of, insubstantial sorts of lyrics. His songs are really great. He is such a fantastic musician, songwriter, and I will go to my grave championing Thomas Dolby. And people kind of think of him as like, oh, well, he was a one-hit wonder, blinded me with science. Well, if that's all you think, I really would challenge you to explore more of his discography, because he goes so much deeper than that. You go to Flat Earth, you've got Hyperactive, which was still, a bit of a hit, but there's some, jazz elements to it. There's really a lot more depth to Thomas Dolby than kind of that caricature that you see in the She Blinded Me with Science video. That's, if anybody knows anything about Thomas Dolby, they think immediately of that video. But yeah, I think this is a phenomenal album. So are any Thomas Dolby album is great. And I may be the only one talking about him, but I don't care, because he, to me, it's an undiscovered, like one of those, very underrated. And I know we throw around the term underrated so often. Any band, any artist that by and large people don't like is underrated. But I can't be any more sincere about that when I'm talking about, Thomas Dolby.
I love that album cover. What year did that album come out?
I think this came out in like 87 or 88, somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, man, that's an awesome album cover.
It's very cool. It's kind of got that Pulp Fiction type of.
Yeah.
It looks like 1950s science fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's right up my alley.
I would buy that just for that album cover, to be honest.
Me too.
Yeah, it's very cool if you can find it. It's hard to. I was very lucky to, have found that out in the wild, but
I'm gonna go into the basement of the Purchase Street Records and try to find that bad lad.
Yeah, well, the cover of the album I was talking about. There's sort of like that 1950s quality about a lot of his, album artwork.
I guess
you've got like kind of that whole, like that old 50s science fiction magazine style to some of his artwork, but and I'm sure the comments we're getting are, who the fuck is Thomas Dolby? Okay, can we hear Gary's pick now?
No, Blinded me with science. John, the Dark Wizard said that. Gazin said he absolutely loves Moby, but nobody talks about him either. Moby's had some instances, right, where they tried to cancel him, I think, because some things that he wrote in his book. But
well, he's very political, so he can be very polarizing in that way, I think. But anyway, Eddie Van Halen actually, he was neighbors with Eddie Van Halen. Thomas Dolby was, and he played Eddie Van Halen guest appeared on the song "Close But No Cigar," which is on his 4th album. I think it's called "Astronauts and Heretics." But
nice.
So yeah,
that's one of the kind of the albatross aspect of MTV. We associate that song with that video so much, and it's almost like it's this jokey, funny kind of video. And MTV, it got a lot of artists noticed, but then they became so associated with the video a lot of times that an artist like Thomas Dolby, you're going to overlook them. because you're going to, most people would think, and it's easy that, okay, this is just a one hit kind of oddball, artist. I mean, like some people were that way with Devo and Whip It.
Well, that's what I was exactly going to say. That's the parallel right there, because people, Thomas Dolby reminds me a lot of Mark Mothersbaugh, because you got the same, that cerebral kind of songwriting, but at the same time, they're pigeonholed because they put out a video like Whip It with Devo. Oh, they got those fucking weird red hats on, oh yeah, they were a one hit wonder. They're a joke band. Same with Thomas Dolby. Oh yeah, he's that nerd in the, She Blinded Me with Science video. And then they don't, it's like, well, I don't care, whatever. The same with Devo. They're like, oh yeah, that's the band that wore those funny hats. Well, it's like, no, have you ever heard, any of Devo's catalog? Devo is,
yeah. I mean, awesome. I gotta feel it. That's music that I'm kind of more open to now in like rediscovering. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like I can't even think of the name of that. What's that CD that you got, Jeff and I, Josh?
Pentagram?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't know. 15 years ago, if I would have heard that, I think I would have dismissed it. But now I'm kind of more open to that, and I think I would be more open now to going back and listening to an artist like Thomas Dolby, and not be just kind of like brushing it off. But
yeah,
there it is.
Fantastic album.
Love it. Yeah, just a little plug for that album. If you're into 80s synth pop or whatever, it's definitely a more modern take on that. I love that album, by the way. But anyway,
I am excited that you love it, and Gary loves it. Everybody should know that one.
Yeah. All right, Gary, your last
my last pick. I'm not even really sure if this fits in this category anymore, because I think a lot of people have changed their opinion. But I know as a kid liking this band, they were, nobody took them seriously, at least here in America. I know everywhere else in the world they did, but I am talking about ABBA, ABBA, the album. This is from 1977. And this isn't just like, to me, this isn't just like, this is a really good ABBA album. This is just one of my favorite albums, period. This is one of these albums that I love every song on it. I listen to start to finish. I am definitely, like, say, in the mood more often to listen to this than I am, say, like an Iron Maiden or something, because, I think we all have music that fits certain moods. And then there's some bands we have that you can listen to them regardless of what mood you're in. And to me, that's ABBA. I can listen to ABBA if I want to hear something maybe more on the mellow side. I can listen to them if I'm feeling upbeat. If I'm having, 3 or 4 beers, I can listen to ABBA and enjoy that. I just think this is a terrific album. It has some of my favorite songs. I mean, you guys off here, Take a Chance on Me and The Name of the Game. Those were the hits. And I love those songs, but I love every song on here. It opens up with a song called Eagle. And God, that's just one of my favorite songs of all time. I love that. And I think those voices, or, sometimes each woman will sing individually. Sometimes they sing together. The songwriting is just fantastic. ABBA was, besides America, they were like the Beatles in other countries. They were just insanely popular, but in America, they kind of got pigeonholed a bit, and people know Dancing Queen and, everything else. It's like, well, this is just certain segments of the population like them. And I don't know. I don't understand why they are not more well-loved in America than what they were. I mean, I think they're more popular now, actually, than they were back when they were out playing. Because I know nobody else I knew was buying ABBA albums back during this time period. But, then they ended up making the Mamma Mia musical and the movie, and there's all kinds of ABBA fans, but
nice.
That's my pick.
It's interesting too, because I thought exactly what you said. I was gonna pick ABBA as one of my picks, but that was my first thought was, yeah, they used to be unpopular, but they seem to be very popular today. And
yeah, I kind of, yeah, I didn't know if I should, but I kind of like some of these picks I'm going by thinking of when I got into them,
right,
you know, type thing, and what they were thought of at that time. You know, now that when, you know, Mike's got the spins mentioned Rick Springfield, I definitely would have got my Rick Springfield albums out and showed that because I've seen him in concert. I love a lot of his stuff. He's had some really, really good music, and I probably would have picked that. But
yeah,
but I didn't want to go there and fish it out. So I'm not like Aaron. I can't go.
That's a really good pick. As I said, it has been a very interesting flow with their career as long as they've been around. And I've always thought,
and they just put an album out, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Christmas weird. After 40 years.
Oh man. All right. So am I up?
Yes, you're up, sir. You are.
For the last pick here. So, you know, I had a nice little stack in case there were some doubles like Fat Boys and all that good stuff. So I think I'm going to do this last one, not even necessarily a single record, but just kind of an artist. You know, one of the guys who would definitely win the award for like mullet of the year. So I'm going to pick Richard Marx.
Wow.
You know, so we have a few of his little studio albums there because I mean, really, it's a lot of the stuff kind of spread across these three albums I love by him, but again, I think he's one of those people that kind of got caught up when you're talking about the, you know, videos and MTV and that type of thing, and he was just always the guy with the gigantic mullet with the really tight jeans and you know the flannel shirt open all the way down to here, and he was singing a ballad trying to get a girl. So if you know that's not cool. You know, we want Slayer, we want Guns N' Roses, we want you know that whole type of thing. But again, I think he has just some really, really good ballads, and even more so, I think it's more of his upbeat stuff that like Should Have Known Better and things like that that were just really, really fantastic, just great, straightforward pop songs. You know, great melodies, great deliveries. Oftentimes, a little bit of substance in the delivery of you know, things like Endless Summer Nights. I remember even as a kid just kind of listening to that, I could definitely hear the emotions that were coming through in that song, the way that he adored the girl that he was singing about, and it's like I really felt and kind of understood where he was coming from. So that made a bit of a stronger connection for me. And again, this is the time when I'm into all hip hop and glam metal. You know, that's all I'm listening to across the board. So for something like that to work its way in and for me to go, hey, that's kind of cool, was kind of powerful. So yeah, just, you know, Should Have Known Better, Don't Mean Nothing, Endless Summer Nights, all great songs. Hold On to the Nights, one of his big hits that I'm not as fond of. But then I think one of his greatest songs really is off of this album here, which was his release from 1991, which is the song Hazard. I don't know if, I mean, that's a powerful song. I mean, that song is almost like watching a murder mystery / horror movie every time you hear it, because he's singing about such a dark thing, but he's doing it in such a soft ballady kind of way, almost a folky kind of way, where he's talking about this girl that he's, you know, dating in town or whatever, and nobody thinks they should be together. You know, he's the piece of crap that no one likes, and all of a sudden one day she goes missing, and so the whole town is like blaming him for murdering her and all this type of stuff. So, you know, like he's even so softly in the chorus, you know, singing about how like we used to meet down by the river and I swear I left her safe and sound, and like I just need to get out of this town because this place, and you listen to the lyrics, and again the tone and the softness of the song, they do not mix, but he makes it work. And to me, that's something special, I think, when an artist can kind of get creative like that. So yeah, I mean, he's my mullet of the year. I love Richard, always will. And so I'll forever be spinning him.
Brandon, you're absolute. Oh God.
He wrote. Didn't he write some hits for other people too?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Luther Vandross. He wrote "Dance with My Father" again. But that song "Hazard," not to interrupt you, Gary, I just have to say I love that song. That's the song that got me into Richard Marx. It's almost like a Nebraska Springsteen era song. And you're absolutely right. And I had this friend, and he was like the one in the town that everybody had their eyes on because he had really long hair and like, you know, like was the kid that people were like, oh, he's a troublemaker, stay away from that kid, you know. But I knew he was a nice guy. And I would always think, man, if something bad happens, they're just going to blame this guy because he's that guy in the small town, you know. But it's so great. Hazard. Gary, have you ever heard that song?
No, but what I'm curious about now, you're telling part of the story, but now is he the one that killed this girl or not? No,
he's not.
Okay.
No.
Well, I don't know. When you said that line, you said, I swear I left her safe down by the river. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, what's going on?
You should listen to it though. It's great.
Yeah,
I will now, because now I'm curious.
Because he's like, we used to walk along the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. It's like, yeah, we used to always go down to the river and hang out and everything. But I swear the last time I was there with her, I left her. We just parted ways. I didn't do anything. I didn't kill her. It's really dark stuff, but beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it's his best song.
So I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
so
turns
my
out
next
Chris Farley killed her.
Down by the river.
In a van. So I think my next record is really cool. And I mean that. I don't think there's any part of it that's uncool. But the reason why I picked it was much like Gary, where at the time that I got into it. So, and much like Brandon, where at the time that I heard this album for the first time, I was really into my favorite bands were Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, NWA, Ice Cube. Those would be like my favorite bands. And I picked up this album, and maybe I got it at Salvation Army, something like that. But I think it's one of the greatest albums of all time. It's one of the greatest live albums of all time. Every single song is amazing. It's arranged by Quincy Jones. It is Count Basie and his orchestra with Sinatra at the Sands. This is the album that probably got me down the path of jazz music. It's all his hits. So it's almost like Frank Sinatra singing his greatest hits. And you could see why people love Frank Sinatra besides his voice. He's so charming when he's talking to the crowd and he's making jokes but you feel like you're in Vegas. And the reason why I picked this for this video is because I remember at the time where I would be listening to Frank Sinatra and my friends would come over and go, what the hell are you listening to? You know, like I was like, oh, sorry, I'll go put that Kiss record back on.
Who put this record on?
Exactly. Oh, I play it so my mother doesn't kick me out of the house. No, but I loved it and I still love it. And I honestly, why isn't there a Mo-Fi of this or a one step of this? This album is incredible. If you like, I know that Gary, you don't like horns, so this is probably not for you. But for everybody else, and not Aaron, don't buy this album. But everybody else, go get this album. It's really good. Love it. So yeah, Sinatra at the Sands, his best live album.
I have to check that out.
Now, I do like some Frank Sinatra songs, so I will say that.
Awesome. Yeah, he's really good. You ever hear Springsteen did a cover of Angel Eyes, the Sinatra song?
What's that off of?
It was on TV. It was like they did a Frank Sinatra right before he died or something, some sort of tribute concert. And Springsteen did Angel Eyes. That's off the album Only the Lonely. And it's so good. I love Only the Lonely because the songs are dark and very Springsteen-esque, I would say. You could see how that song could have influenced Springsteen. So
cool.
Yeah, it's an awesome album. If you can find it, it's definitely there's mono too. I'm on a hunt for a mono copy if anyone ever finds it and they don't want it.
Well, if I ever find it.
I haven't heard that one. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a great.
I love that cover.
Album.
I love that album cover.
Yeah, it's so good. It just paints the picture, and you think about it's just much like Kiss Alive, where you're like, you stare at the pictures. You can kind of imagine being in Vegas. It shows them like getting ready, and just really cool.
You look out in the crowd, and all the front rows, mobsters.
Exactly, yeah. And he's pretty funny. He's got like a monologue. You can stream it, Gary, like a monologue rap in the middle where he's just like ripping on people and ripping on the hotel. Just like, it's really funny. Like, but you think about it, Quincy Jones, Count Basie, Frank Sinatra. I mean, like, it's just, back then they would get all these superstars and put them together, it's just awesome.
Wow.
Cool. Good pick, man.
Thank you.
Checking that out.
All right. Well, my next pick is, I'm going to feel very inadequate now. Thank you. All right. Well, anyway, I watched a lot of MTV back in the 1980s. This is going to be another 1980s pick. And so that influenced a lot of my musical picks. So while my peers were listening to Iron Maiden and Cinderella and Judas Priest and bands like that, I totally was jonesing for a completely different type of band. And I bought this on cassette, eventually got it on vinyl. And then I'm looking at this, I'm like, how the fuck is the title track not on this record? But it's not. It's on the cassette, but it's not on here. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, I have no idea why not. But talking about Hooters, Hype Stick, Gert, JC.
I love it.
Yeah, but there's the big draw, the big thing that kind of set this album apart was the melodica, which, if you don't know, it's sort of like a flute with a keyboard. It's like a keytar, but if you had like a flute or whatever, and that was like the distinctive sound that you hear on And We Danced. But All You Zombies, Where Do the Children Go with Patti Smythe, a duet with Patti Smythe is on here. Day by Day was a big up-tempo hit. But yeah, I got suckered in. I saw the videos on MTV and I thought, damn, this is a great album. And when I was in Idaho, I found it in the shrink with the hype. Everybody out there, I know you're just drooling with jealousy over the fact that I picked this up. I'd like to eventually get a Mo-Fi pressing, a half-step pressing, a half-speed mastering of this album. I'd love to get the 50th anniversary or whatever anniversary of this tracks with the demos, with the live tracks at Red Rocks, whatever else, whatever other, but yeah, it's just a phenomenal album. The cool thing about this, like, look, check out this album artwork. You've got on the cover, you've got certain band members who are lit, and then they're not lit. Ooh, they're lit, and they're not lit. Oh, they're lit. You get the point. Anyway, but and so like I always refer to them as the Hooters, but there's not they're actually just Hooters. But I don't know. They got She Comes in Colors, which actually, the Rolling Stones song, She's a Rainbow. They kind of borrowed that phraseology from the Rolling Stones, but yeah, I don't know. It's a cool enough album if you were back in the day, if you bought it. I'm not going to say, oh, go check this album out. You're going to love it because, probably you won't. But anyway, I don't know. We were talking about uncool albums. What's less cool than the fucking Hooters?
I don't know. They got great wings, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going to sit here and try to defend the Hooters. They were great. You don't like the Hooters. You don't know if you don't like the Hooters, you're not missing anything. Who am I kidding, honestly? But I'd say, a nostalgic thing, honestly, for me. And they're still around today, believe it or not. But it was a snapshot in time, where like you had to be there, and you would dig it. But they actually have a song called this. The album is called Nervous Night, and they actually have a song called Nervous Night, but it's on the cassette. It's not on here. I have no idea why, but I know I know Aaron has this album, so
He does.
before you start trying to laugh me off this video, just know Aaron Mutha Alamere has this as part of his story library. So
yeah, but to be fair,
last
there's not that many albums Aaron doesn't have. So
right. Right. But I mean, I could have, I don't know. I could have showed like, oh, Metallica's first album. Nobody liked that at the time. That was an uncool album, but still shows how good. No, like I'm showing how vulnerable I am. I am taking this in the spirit that it was intended. Yeah, I have Hooters. Okay. And you want to know what's more? I actually have a 12-inch single of, I think it's And We Danced. Maybe, I don't know, any one of those singles, but it has like the same song front and back, and but yeah, I'm uncool. Okay, I told you that at the beginning. I am not cool.
I hope they do come out with a one step for Hooters for you.
yeah.
But I mean, they gotta have a
one copy,
right? At least
one copy for Jeff.
Just for Jeff.
Anyway, if you're looking for that album, look in the dollar bin at any record store you go to. I'm sure you'll find it there.
Jeff, you do realize for Christmas now, one of us is going to get you a Japanese press of that album.
Yeah.
With the Obi.
Yeah, well, I'm like so proud of the fact they got the hype sticker.
I know, I love the hype. You guys are killing me with the hypes today.
Yeah, I know. See, you're not the only one who collects awesome hype stickers. So
we should do a video and show our favorite hypes. David Lee Roth, Crazy from the Heat's got to be the greatest of all time.
See, now, like Mike gets it. Mike's like, that was brave to show your. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. Do you guys have any honorable mentions?
I'm a black guy sitting here with a Cyndi Lauper t-shirt on. I'm ready for that. Jesus. You know the dangers I take walking out in public with this thing? A lot of questions to answer.
You got to be quite the badass to pull that
off.
Any honorable mentions before we wrap things up?
Oh, yeah, I got a few.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just flash. I'm not going to talk.
Yeah.
But Def Leppard, Hysteria, specifically Hysteria. Everything before that's cool. Billy Squire.
Oh, Billy Squire.
Come on, everybody loves that album.
You gotta love it.
that whole Rock Me Tonight video and all of that. But man,
that was after that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In the Dark, though, one of the most killer rock songs ever.
Yeah.
Of course, Poison. That general discussion. Even Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet." I don't think it's cool.
Oh, you got that covered. Look at that.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of nice. But yeah, "Slippery When Wet."
Watch that finger there, Brandon.
Yeah.
Genesis, just like you talked about the other day.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
Pet Shop Boys. It's not cool to be a Pet Shop Boy fan. And of course, the last one,
Culture Club.
There you go.
Look at that.
So those are the ones
I
have.
also have that in the shrink with before anybody's like,
oh, yeah, there's
doubting my credibility. I have. Let me see if it's the same height that I have.
Oh my God, we're gonna have different hypes.
We're gonna have Hype Wars.
Yeah.
Hype Wars.
I have 2 copies of Steve Perry's solo album with 2 totally different hypes.
Hey. The same height. Yeah.
I think it's the same one.
Same height.
Yeah.
Mike's got the spin. Says he's got a pair of the Rock Me Tonight gym shorts.
All right, Mike. I mean, I only had one honorable mention because I knew none of you would have any of mine. And this is a band from the 60s, and it's the Turtles. The Turtles present the Battle of the Bands, which I've shown before, but probably one of the uncoolest bands of the 1960s. They're all ugly. They're
they're all just so like unattractive. And yet, you know, their music, I was not a huge Turtles fan. I didn't know jack about the Turtles until this year. But this album is such a fun album because, you know, it was released in 1968. Their big hit was Happy Together in 1967. And the whole premise behind this album is they take on the persona of like 12 different bands on this record. And they, in the gatefold, they actually like, they did photo sessions where they were like, they have the names of the different bands and they're in different costumes and stuff like that. And each song is a different genre. Like they kind of do like a spoof on all the different genres of the 1960s. Like you've got a song called Surfer Dan, which is totally Jan and Dean. It's like, sounds like it sounds so much. I mean, they do such a good job with, you know, the styles of music that they're kind of parodying on here. And Too Much Heartsick Feeling is like an old 60s like country song. But they like every song is a different genre. It's almost like the White Album that the Beatles had pretended, you know, like Sgt. Pepper, they pretended they were a different band, you know, but this is like each song they're pretending like they're a different band and they're just sort of like having fun with like different genres and stuff like that. I mean, there's surf music, there's psychedelic rock on here, acid rock, country rock, surf music, all different kinds of stuff, you know, and it's such a fun album. I never, you know, thought I would enjoy this album as much as I did. But if you ever see it, I mean, it's going to be super cheap. Like, don't pay more than $3 for this record, but it is really fun to listen to, just because they don't take themselves seriously. They're just having fun, and they're kind of making fun of all the contemporary music at the time and all the different styles. And you'd have bands like that, you know, like the Fruit Gum, whatever company, and, you know, just all these different eccentric kinds of bands. And it's just a fun record.
Sounds fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff, speaking of 60s rock, because I know you got the Monkees Run Out Groove record. Mike from the In Groove, he does a list of the 100 best sounding albums that are in print. And he just added that Monkees Run Out Groove album to it as one of the best.
Are the Monkees?
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds phenomenal. Yeah, it sounds better than even a CD.
Yeah.
It's really great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You got to read some comments, JC, before we go.
Oh, I do. Let's see. Okay. Poison later era is better than early. That's what John the Dark Wizard said. Love the Culture Club. Poison Mind is my favorite. Love the Turtles. Church of the Poison Mind, favorite Culture Club songs. People really love that song. Another, love the Turtles. Turtles are cool. I didn't catch all the picks. Did anyone show Warrant's Cherry Pie? I almost did.
Yeah.
I think that album is a great album. I just think it's that one song that gets them slack. The Grassroots, I don't think Three Dog Night gets the love. Cherry Pie is a good record. Love Grassroots, love Three Dog Night. I saw that yesterday. Love that fun bubblegum stuff. Bubblegum, I have tons of K-Tel LPs. So yeah, awesome comments. Yeah, Cherry Pie is one of those albums that the record company told them to go write another song. And, you know, that's where they went in and they wrote Cherry Pie as a big hit, you know, but I don't think it really represents that album. But man, they gained a lot of fans and they lost a lot of fans.
Yeah.
That's
the one that has an Uncle Tom Cabin on it, man. Which
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about Warrant that a lot of people don't know is, and this is probably another reason why they get a lot of slack, is they brought in a lot of studio musicians to play on those albums because some of the members of the band just weren't up to snuff, for the record company. So I think that once that stuff leaked out, it kind of gave them a bad reputation. But they did write the songs, and that's the big thing. Is that they may have had Kiss did that. Kiss brought in outside studio musicians at times, but Kiss also brought in outside songwriters. At that point, Warrant was writing, I think, their own songs. So. But what's funny is that I just read an interview with Post Malone, and Post Malone has actually had 3 albums that are like 18 times platinum, right? Like he's one of the biggest artists in the world. And he said with every album, he was obsessed with making a hit, and he'd bring in all these producers and all these collaborators. And he finally said he was going to quit the industry because he said, this is not fun. And he's decided his new album he just did it for fun. He didn't bring in any of these outside collaborators or anything, and just made an album of music that he likes. And I wonder if that's what's missing from a lot of the popular bands, the pop artists of the day. I don't want to talk about I know we all love underground bands, but the pop artists of the day must feel such tremendous pressure to stay relevant and have hits because they don't have long careers. You see these people come and go. Where our artists, like Gary mentioned sometimes, the 70s artists, the 80s artists, they're still touring. Some of them are touring and playing whole albums in their entirety. So I do wonder, my son's generation, it's a generation of singles and pop songs.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. But yeah, just throwing it out there. So who knows? Maybe Post Malone's new album will be completely different. Rock my world.
Yeah.
One of the things that's kind of interesting with that is the fact that when you look at a lot of those artists back then, like today, it seems like almost every artist could double as a male or female model. But back in the day, there were some very ugly cats that were singing some very great songs, which just kind of tells me that the whole chemistry and what you're looking for and what you're trying to do is get a face out there, get as many downloads, as many sales. And in 6 months or a year, this will be gone. We'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. Tom Petty tried to say that with his album Last DJ, and he got in a lot of trouble. But he was basically so upset with 2 things. One was American Idol, because he was like, he felt it was a game show to become a rock star. And he felt like the way to become a rock star is to go out there and to tour and to play and to make mistakes and learn from your mistakes and collaborate and write songs and not go up there and see who's the best singer. And he even said, he goes, if I was in a contest, I wouldn't have won. Bob Dylan wouldn't have won. They'd be like, get off the stage. He's like, so that really upset him. And also that corporate radio. So most people don't know this, but 99% of radio stations are owned by 4 individuals in the world. So they control what we hear. And that's why you always hear the same Led Zeppelin songs. You always hear the same Beatles songs. You don't hear Deep Purple or you don't hear Springsteen, because they will control what you hear, what you don't hear, based on your political views, based on whether or not your record company pays the money for your songs to be played. That's a fact, right? These people that get their songs played in the radio, payola is real, right? The program directors are bribed. They're flown out to Vegas. They're given prostitutes. All of these things have been well documented. You can read about it. So Tom Petty was standing up to that when he wrote that album, The Last DJ. This is the last DJ that's going to play what he wants to play, whether or not his boss will let him or not. And I think that's the thing about the state of the music industry. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these artists are super talented, and I love a lot of these artists. But I try to explain that to my girlfriend, and sometimes she doesn't get it. But you have to be attractive. Like they make these ultra attractive people, and they must feel this tremendous pressure to be attractive, And I agree with you. It's like when you look at those album covers of the Turtles or Bob Dylan, nobody was like, oh, well, he's not pretty enough. They were just like, this guy is so fantastic. We're going to let him make as many albums as he possibly wants to make. But, I know I'm ranting. I don't mean to upset anybody, but that's just how I feel. It's just like, I think something needs to change.
That's all truth, man. That's not a rant. That's all truth right there. Without question.
Yeah, well, at an age where everybody's auto-tuned now, on the radio, like it's not just the merits of your voice. it's more important that you look the part than you sound the part. Oh, you look great, but you don't sound that great. We'll just auto tune your voice and we'll, correct it in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they should just let people be, and that's what I mean. There's still a lot of great bands. Like we love Dawes, so I love Lucero and Lord Huron. There's a lot of great bands out there that don't fit that, but you're not going to hear them on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of topics for future videos, I think it'd be fun. I think most of us who've grown up in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, almost doing a video where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. What do we remember that was good about the 70s or 80s or 90s? What do we consider was bad? And what was just reprehensible about, we were talking, like we started out having, a talk about, the whole 90s, the early 90s was so dour and, you couldn't be happy. You had to talk about how much pain you were in. You had to sing about how miserable you were, or the 80s was a different decade, almost just taking a decade and being like, what do we love about it? What were some of the negative things about it? What were our favorite memories of that particular decade, musically, culturally, or otherwise? And just kind of, talking about, what were our favorite bands? Did our, tastes evolve over the course of that decade? Are there any elements of that particular decade that we used to like that we no longer like, or at the time we didn't like, and now we've grown to appreciate, almost taking kind of like decade by decade.
Yeah.
Might be an interesting thing to do.
Maybe start in the 30s.
Yeah.
Well, you were around in the 30s, Gary, but Brandon, Josh, and I were not. So it'd be
I know. So you wouldn't have as much to say.
Yeah, we said I was not a fan of those Nazis. All right, Josh.
I was against them.
Damn Nazis.
Yeah, remember Glenn Miller's album that really alienated everybody? Yeah, no, it's fun. And I love having conversations about this, and there are going to be people who, that album's great, and then there are going to be people who, laugh or make fun because we own those albums. But, music's such a unique, kind of experience. And, like that Sinatra album. Yeah, I wasn't around then. I wasn't,
Yeah. And I just
appreciate that. But
you think about like stumbling into Salvation Army and a metalhead picking this up. You know what I mean? I knew Sinatra, but probably from like weddings, things like that, And it's like, yeah. But my son, I guarantee you, on Sunday I'll play for this. When my son comes down, I'm going to play this, and I'll give you his reaction. I'll let you know what he thinks. He's probably going to give me the same reaction my friends gave me. What the hell are you listening?
What is this?
What is this? Too funny. Miss 80s did say, just like YouTube, a good thumbnail will get clicks. Same with music. A good outer appearance, as vain as that is, will attract an audience. Okay. Yeah. Well,
no, nobody did mention Air Supply, but I did see them in concert a few years ago.
I do.
Please say more, Gary.
I took my wife.
Yeah.
Like Air Supply.
I can make all the stadiums rock. Making love out of nothing at all.
Making love out of nothing at all.
That's a great track.
Just so I can picture Gary at the concert.
Well, we're missing Chris and Aaron. What do you think Chris would have picked? I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris would have picked Rod McEwen. He might have
I talked to Chris.
Ryan in there.
Chris told me his whole collection.
I think he might have had Monkey's Changes as one of his picks.
I bet he would have picked Anne Murray.
Yeah, Anne Murray.
Yep.
What about Aaron?
I bet you Aaron would have picked Nielsen. Harry Nilsson, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty well respected. I don't.
But I don't know, because it depends how Aaron was going. You know, like Aaron was a metalhead. I'm sure that he probably thought like, oh well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. All of you guys have such great taste in music. I was very interested to see what you would pick. And when you started talking about Tears for Fears, Jeff, I was going to be like, no way. Tears for Fears, everyone knows is cool.
Yeah. Well, you can't argue that Tears for Fears is uncool anymore because, I mean, they transcended that. But, you know, I think because that's a band that more people relate to, you know, when I'm trying to talk about Thomas Dolby. But, yeah, I don't know. I love it because, you know, we show you know, a video like this, you show albums that we would not ordinarily have an opportunity to talk about on our channel, you know, unless it's a contest that very specifically targets, you know, one of those records that we're talking about. But like, I've never shown the Hooters on my channel. I doubt I've ever shown Level 42. You know, they're just bands that, you know, we always want to show, oh, Metallica, or we want to show, you know, cool bands like REM, or we want to show, you know, Van Halen and stuff like that. But you know, we all have records in our collection that, you know, we're not volunteering to talk about because, you know, we know people are either going to be indifferent or they're going to give us crap about it.
Melinda Murphy just said that she would have picked Neil Diamond, jazz singer, which I love that song, Love on the Rocks.
That's a good
album is fantastic.
Ain't no big surprise. Yeah, that's a great one.
When I was a kid, whenever I stayed home sick from school, it seemed like a jazz singer always came on in the middle of the day. And I wasn't quite ready to take in Neil Diamond, but whenever I caught it, I was like, I have to sit here and wait for him to sing America at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't know the movie, so I don't know exactly how long the end is, but I'm just like sitting there. Like I'm not leaving the TV until he sings America. So awesome.
We're coming to America
today. Another one I left off that I did not think to pull out was Enya.
Oh, Enya, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big Enya fan.
I almost, so other bands that I almost pulled, but I didn't, were Simply Red,
yes.
Scritti Politti.
Who?
Scritti Politti. Miles Davis covered Scritti Politti. He actually covered their song Perfect Way. They were a synth pop band from the early 80s, and Miles Davis was a big fan. He covered their song Perfect Way.
Nice.
So that's anybody who tries to give me crap about Scritti Politti. I'm like, well, then you don't like Miles Davis because Miles Davis likes Scritti Politti.
Is that how it works?
Yes. By association.
By association.
They're 10 times cooler than you thought they were. Yeah.
So my album I almost pulled was New Edition because I love Candy Girl. And I love Candy Girl. I know they're a boy band, but I love it. That song puts me in such a good mood.
Bobby Brown, baby.
Yeah, and Belle Biv DeVoe, they were in there too.
Yeah.
They're all-star band. I've got like, it's funny because I have a Keith Sweat album, but I found it at a yard sale, and I said, Carter, this is for you. And he's like, I don't even know this guy. I said, don't worry, you'll like it. like, yeah, I love that whole era of music. Yeah, so good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, almost pulled it.
What about Jules' Pieces of You? That was one I almost pulled as well.
Yeah, that was a good album too, man. A lot of people love that album, and then they turned on her so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you think that was? What about Joan Osborne?
Oh yeah,
I like her.
Osborne, yeah, she's
good. Got a great voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know who I think is really cool but doesn't get enough credit is Berlin. I would almost pull them because of, you know, the Top Gun song. They kind of like got overplayed, but I think that they were the coolest band, you know.
Well, Pleasure Victim's a great album. Pleasure Victim is really kind of like that whole early new wave Blondie, sound. It's really kind of cutting edge. Like, Sex, I think was another track off that record. But the Metro was very much early MTV, early new wave synth pop. That's a great album. But Berlin, that's another one that you could have.
They just put out a good album like a year ago.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Oh yeah, Paula Cole.
Oh,
where have all the Cowboys gone?
Where have
very good album.
Cowboys?
I saw
every album's cooler if you have an Obi strip on
it.
Most definitely. If they would ever press the freaking thing on vinyl, I can't figure out why they haven't pressed it. That was such a huge album.
Yeah. She was at one of the Lilith fairs I went to.
Nice.
Yeah, what was her hit?
What's that?
What was her hit?
Where have all the Cowboys gone?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
It was, and what was that other one?
Alana Miles.
Oh, Alana Miles. Yeah, she had a big hit too.
Black Velvet.
Black Velvet. Black Velvet.
That's a good album too.
I'm still waiting to get the album, but Chris Isaak, I think, is absolutely amazing, and I think most people have come around to him. But for a while, people probably didn't think he was the coolest. That guy's got an amazing voice.
Yeah,
and a great song.
Rick Springfield's been getting a lot of love on this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick Springfield's incredible.
Quarter Flash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Take Me to Heart, one of my favorite 80s tracks.
What about the Motels?
Yes.
Motels, yeah.
The Waitresses.
Oh yeah.
I know what boys.
Yes,
you
Missing
might like me better
Persons.
if we slept together.
Missing Persons Walking in LA.
Yeah.
Don't go
Jeff,
walking.
Jeff,
What?
did you miss
Say that again.
Madness, the 80s band
Oh
Madness?
yeah, Our House. Yeah.
Yeah.
One Step Beyond.
One step beyond.
One
Yeah, they were that
beyond.
early ska movement.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. So cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Sam St. John, what the last album we all listened to was. Sam, mine was Sabotage Gutter Ballet, which just got reissued. And they gave this thing the greatest treatment of a single album I've ever seen. It's got like a 20-page book or something, at least 15 pages. I might be exaggerating. It's like a gatefold. It sounds amazing. So yeah, that was me. What about you guys?
This one.
Yeah,
Mickey Dolenz sings Mike Nesmith. That was the last one I listened to.
Nice.
Last thing I listened to was this CD.
Frank Sinatra.
Nice.
Yeah.
Swingin' Lovers, baby.
Swingin' Lovers. Great album. That's why it's sitting right here on my desk.
That was mine.
Animalized. All right.
Animalized.
There you go.
Mike says the last thing he listened to was Prince Sign of the Times. That's a great one. John says that he loves Missing Persons album.
Me too.
Roy says, I can't tell you how many times I listened to Otis Redding, Dock at the Bay. What a great song that is.
Yeah.
If you can listen to more, introduce me so I can shake their hand. And Miss 80 says Chris Stapleton's Traveler was the last album that she has played.
Yeah, that's a good album.
I have not heard it, but I should.
Yeah, all his albums. I mean, you can just grab whichever one you find on the shelf, just grab it and you'll be happy with it. That guy's a genius.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
Gazin just listened to the Guess Who, Wheat Fill Soul. Yeah, so
That's a great one. I just got that on vinyl a couple of months ago.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
And Sam St. John said, has anyone heard the new Sinatra album by Mark Tremonti? It's fantastic. So I have not heard.
No.
Nope.
No clue.
Is Mark Tremonti like a jazz singer or something?
No, he's actually a rock and roller. He was he took over for Creed when they kicked Scott Stabb out, right? Didn't like he was in Creed, I think, and then Alter Bridge, which was Creed without Scott Stabb or whatever the hell that guy's name is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Did not know. No.
there you go.
All right. Yeah, I'm about ready to pass out.
Yeah. All right.
This is fun, guys.
Yeah, we
Yes.
had like
Wow.
consistently 27 to 30 plus people in the chat. So
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Well, we'll be back next week doing the live stream, so you can look forward to that. If you have any topics or anything you want us to discuss, leave it in the comment section. But
Yeah, that's cool. Sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
we rock some cool shirts today.
Sabbath,
Van
ACDC.
Halen, Cyndi Lauper.
It's like one of those kids are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
yeah, no, fun time. We'll see you guys all back next week, same time, same channel. And we'll pick a topic, but maybe we can do a decade by decade kind of a thing, a retrospective, just talk about each decade. What we remember, what were the highs, what were the lows, what were our favorite records, videos, maybe even, what were you buying? Were you buying records? Were you buying cassettes? Were you buying CDs? Kind of a general discussion like that. Fun to do. So.
All right.
It's been fun, guys, as always.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. See
All
ya.
right. Take it easy.
Safe, everybody.